Michael, we are live on YouTube. You may begin whenever you're ready.
Great. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's April 16th full design review board meeting. I call us to order, and I have a quorum of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6. Is that right, staff? I know I have a quorum. That's all I know because I was allowed to get started. So I'll establish who that is in a second. Um, and then do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
From Mike B.
All right, there's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, motion passes. Staff, do we have some last meeting minutes to approve?
Yes, but before we do that, I understand that item K is the last on the agenda. But we will be starting at 6:30 to go over the design review.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. I was like looking at the agenda and I was very confused, but do we need to make a motion to amend the agenda then?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna make a motion to amend the agenda to speak about the design guidelines because we need to make those a priority tonight. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, that motion passes. Now, do we have any last meeting minutes?
Yes, so the last board meeting minutes that we will approve are March 19th, March 26th, and April the 2nd.
All right. I hear a motion to approve March 19th, March 26th, and April 2nd meeting minutes.
So move.
There's a motion by John. I hear a second.
Second from Mike B.
Second from Mike B. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any against? All right, motion passes. Now design review board elections. I guess we need to do elections tonight as well.
Yes, right out.
Should we do those during the main opening, or we can do those now? It's okay.
It's up to you. But I was hoping to get through the.
Yeah, no, we can do them now. I didn't, we're starting early here, so it's a little bit of a unique situation. So,
All right, so I get started with the design guidelines, or you want to do the elections first?
let's do the elections and then we'll do the design guidelines.
Okay.
That way we can knock it out. So I guess we have elections, which means we need to have nominations for vice chairs and chairs. And then once the nominations are put up, they need to be seconded, and then we will take a vote on it.
Is this for all three positions, Michael, or was this for just?
I honestly don't know.
It's for
So
all
I can
three.
explain it. It's gonna be for chair and all three vice chairs for each council.
so four positions
Four
total.
positions? Okay.
So does anyone want to make a motion on that?
I would like to motion nominate Michael Wood for chair.
I would second the motion.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? I would just say thank you. Be happy to do it again if everyone else wants it.
Michael, you want to ask for any other nomination?
Any other nominations?
Nominations are now closed.
All right. So LaShonda corrected me and said I have 6 members, just for the record. Camelia, Brian, Emily, Mike B, John, and Samantha. Oh, plus me, so that's actually 7. Right?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Welcome, Samantha, to your first meeting, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. All right, so there's a motion, there's a second for to renew me as chair. I guess let's take a vote of all those in favor of that. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? I'll vote to abstain. So motion passes 601. All right, thank you guys. Hopefully I'll do your justice. I'm a little scatterbrained because we started early, so I apologize. All right, so now we're looking for nominations for vice chair. So basically these are the chair of these panel meetings that we have. And I believe I think everyone who is a vice chair is here right now. I think. All right, so any nominations?
I'll nominate or make a motion to nominate. Where'd you go there, my friend Brian Cutler for vice chair?
All right. We have a nomination for Brian. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Hear a second from John, I think. Any further discussion? Cam, should I take all the nominations for vice chairs or should we do one by one?
I think you've done it one by one before, but the last year you've done it all three at the same time. So, you to expedite it, you could do it that way.
Okay. Okay, so Brian first and seconded. Any other nominations for vice chairs? I'll put a nomination out there for Mike B.
Second.
All right, there's a seconded from Brian. Any discussion on that?
I'll do my
Okay.
best, y'all. Appreciate
Okay.
the vote of confidence there.
Any other nominations? There's also, who's missing tonight, LaShonda? There's
Sarah and Elena.
Sarah and Elena are also missing, just for the record. They can still be voted in. They're not here to say no. So
Michael, who is the third vice chair right now?
I thought it
All
was
right.
Bruce.
I
Wasn't
think it was Bruce, yeah. So that's why we're picking new ones. I mean, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Emily. If she'd be willing to do it. So
just a procedural aspect. If you nominate Emily, you're changing the panel makeup. So the vice chair is the chair of each panel. So right now, Mike B, Elena, and Emily are the blue panel. Brian, Michael Wood, and John Elledge are the green panel. Camelia, Samantha, and Sarah are the red panel. So the vice chair needs to be on the red panel unless you all are changing the makeups of the panels.
well,
Can I ask a procedural question there as well? Is there anything with regard to design professionals versus quote unquote lay persons in terms of the makeup of the panels?
So yes, the requirement for each panel is 2 design professionals and 1 lay person, but anyone can be vice chair.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's up to, I don't want to rock the boat if everyone else is happy with their panels.
I mean, in general, I'm very happy with the panels, but I mean, we changed panels last year, and I would fully support and second the nomination for Emily as vice chair.
I appreciate your all's nomination and graciously accept, although I do love my panel and I don't want to leave them. So
why are you
now
breaking
I'm
up the
torn.
band, man?
No,
Well,
don't rock the boat. Oh.
I'm not trying to, but even though I said that I'd like to nominate people that aren't here, I actually would be, I don't know if they would want to accept it. So any discussion on it further than that, the only thing I would say, staff, is what would be great, and I know I mentioned this to, I think, Anna Rosa, would be, if we are redoing the shuffling of the panels, would be to go back to where we have consistent, our panel is like the first Tuesday of the month, or second Tuesday of the month, or fourth Tuesday of the month, because right now it's been alternating and I can't keep track. I don't ever actually know when I have a meeting until I actually get the email the week before. So I probably could look at the schedule, but it's nice to know whether it's the second or first or fourth. So I don't know if that's possible if we did reshuffle, but that's just my suggestion. So there's a first, there's a seconded. And Emily, are you willing to accept, you said, right?
I am willing to accept the nomination. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we have Brian, Emily, and Mike B for vice chair. Is there any further discussion or should we vote? All right. So all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 7-0-0. All right. Now we've done that, LaShonda. Let's roll into your stuff.
Okay, awesome. So, let's see, Patrick, if you could put item K on the screen, please. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Staff is back to present Bach's proposed recommendations to the design guideline revisions. So I'm here to present to get the DRB's feedback on whether they would like to incorporate these. Once staff notes the revisions or the incorporations made by the design review, we'll put together a final version of the design guidelines for a public hearing at a future DRB meeting. So Patrick, if we can please go to page number 4, I'll start with the first comment. So the first comment deals with mechanical equipment. It indicates that the landscaping screening design described in the mechanical equipment design guideline may not align with the proper or the effective operation of mechanical equipment under what's current. So Bach believes that privacy screening alone is adequate to shield equipment, and that additional forms of screening, like landscape screening, could potentially disrupt or impede the normal functioning of the equipment. Did the DRB have any feedback on that?
I think in certain situations, such as a townhouse, I would agree that might be the situation. But there are clusters that are single family houses. There's clusters that are have bigger yards where screening of landscaping could easily be done and still giving proper, breathing room to the HVAC unit. So I think removing it to me should not be an option. I would rather have greenery than a fence or a panel or whatever it be. I think we basically give kind of options, right? So
That's
me,
my
giving
understanding
options
as
is
well,
more
Michael, that
valuable.
this was supposed to be an either or. It could have a mechanical structural screen or a planting screen. We're not saying you have to have both.
Correct. That's how I feel our current is written, and what they're requesting, in my opinion, is that they're trying to remove the landscaping portion, which I just don't think I don't think there's a reason to remove it, is my point.
I agree, because I'm in the same boat where if, as you mentioned, on larger properties, you can provide ample buffer and still have the equipment operate properly. So that just seems like a personal preference rather than something that we need to eliminate or include.
Yeah, that's my opinion as well.
Any other comments or feedback for the mechanical equipment from any other DRB member?
No, I agree with the previous comments.
All right, if we can go to page 10, the next comment number 2, deals with political signs, which indicates changing the time frame for putting up a political sign from 30 days to 60 days, and then the removal time frame from 1 week to 3 days. And then the second bullet also covers pretty much closely on the same page, addressing the situation where election results are very close. The recommendation is to add language that deals with uncertain election outcomes, ensuring that the decisions regarding removal are made only after the final results are known and declared.
I'm fine with, extending it to 60 days. That's, I don't have anything against that. Picking up after 3 days, I mean, sure. Once again, it's an enforcement thing. So it's ultimately, it's just more of a recommendation, and then people would have to actually enforce it. So, and then I honestly don't think we need to worry about addressing too close to call elections. To me, you can't keep voting even in a close election, so it doesn't really matter. But
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the change, but I don't really have anything else to add either. So
We are going to add the, change it to 60 days, and then the removal timeframe, keep it the same, which is currently 1 week.
I think a week is enough time for people to
Totally fine.
get it out of their yard. I mean, I don't think shortening it is really going to make a difference.
But after the election or after the announcement of election results, because I guess they're raising the point that sometimes if they're too close to call, they're not announced immediately.
Well, I think we were updating it to be 1 week after the election, right?
Yeah,
We were
perfect.
getting rid of results, right? Staff, wasn't that?
That is correct. It just says, 1 week after election.
Yeah.
Results is, taken off the table.
To
Got
me,
it.
you
Thank
can't keep voting. So, and if they ended up redoing an election, there would be a new technical election for a revote or whatever, and then you could put back out a sign if you wanted to, per our guidelines. So I would say update to 60 days and then keep the 1 week.
Gotcha. All right, so next would be on page 21, for ground level decks, comment number 4. For privacy screen, the recommendation is to change the total dimensions from not to exceed 6 feet from the walking surface to allowing privacy screens to be 7 feet above the walking surface.
I'm fine with it.
The only thing I would say is like it's been 6 feet in Reston forever. Like all the fences are maxed out at 6 feet. Like everything is maxed out at 6 feet usually.
That's a zoning thing. Like if we put 7, they're still not gonna be able to put 7. So. Like a 7-foot fence or a 7-foot screen is usually taller than what zoning requirements will allow. So that was just what we were originally going with in line. If we put 7, it's fine, but they're not going to be able to get it approved. So
unless it's like part of like, I think if you can get it around it by like doing like a trellis like structure that like technically is not a screen sort of, or a fence.
but then setbacks apply and yada,
Yeah,
yada, yada,
yeah,
and so on. So I don't see a reason to up it from the 6 feet that has been consistent with what, as you mentioned, has been the standard thus far.
I'm hazy. Why were we updating this one in particular from 6 to 7 feet? Was there something that was driving that?
Well, no, it's just a comment from the Bach committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not fussy either way. If it sounds like, and Emily, I mean, to your point, it's not going to actually come to pass, right? Other than the fact that we can say it's all right with us. But yeah, I guess I'm not fussy on this one either.
So 7 feet, or are we gonna keep it the same?
No, I'm thinking we're leaning towards
Keep it 6.
6 feet. Yeah.
Seems like the mood is keep it the same.
All right, moving right along, if we go to page 36, landscaping. This comment number 5, it was addressing the requirements to obtain county building permits. And just to provide clarification, the purpose of the language was to address modifications on properties adjacent to RA pathways and lakes. So staff is just recommending to relocate the language to the comment section below, which would be on page 39.
Okay. 39. So that basically like at the very end is what.
At the very end of the,
Yeah, I think what's driving this is that we wanted to. It wasn't that we're trying to act as the county's agent. We just, to me, if a project is going to require a grading plan or a stormwater management plan of some sort, we would like to just have that part of the application when it's being submitted. I think that's all we're kind of looking for, because a lot of the times it'll impact neighbors, etc. So to me, relocating it to here is fine.
I have a question. Are we talking about only relocating the submission must include approval or correspondence from Watershed Pathways of Fairfax County, or the whole shebang?
the whole shebang.
Can we split it up and say installation of landscape drainage must be visually integrated into areas natural landscaping and leave that in here, and then just move the more legalese about the county to the end notes?
Yeah,
But it-
that's what I thought we were suggesting. Yeah. I like that. I would want to we got to keep the thing about drainage because a lot of people will end up having to do drainage around here. It's inevitable. So can we just pull out that one part and put that on page 39?
Yes.
Sorry to join late, fellow folks.
You're good, Elena.
Also, LaShonda, while you're taking notes, there should be catch basins, like with a S plural, or S in parentheses rather.
Okay.
Everything else is in plural.
Noted.
That's all. Hi,
All right, any other comments? Nope. All right, moving right along, if we go to page 55, this deals with gutters and downspouts. Similar to give me one second, gutters and downspouts. So the regulation, okay, so this says the regulation of stormwater flow established by the Virginia Supreme Court decisions over and above whatever regulations the county may have adopted. RA needs to avoid acting as an agent for the county or giving out legal advice. So staff's comment was there's one small change recommended by the Environmental Advisory Committee, which was previously missed on page 4. Reword runoff direction section as follows. Water should be directed away from the sidewalks, driveways, gutters, and roads, and never over or through curb cuts into streets or street gutters.
I'm okay with the EAC's comment with the only caveat, and this is just my experience outside of Reston. Sometimes on older buildings, you are able to get permission for curb cuts because there's no other way, curb cuts or going into the stormwater system because there's no other way to feasibly get water away from the house other than that. So the word never is just the only thing that's sticking out to me. But I don't honestly know how to address that, and we have a minute left, so I don't know what to do.
We will have time to talk about if we don't get through all of it. We'll go back at the end. After all the applications have been discussed, but any other comments to wrap this up? We got 6:58.
I personally don't understand the comment from Bach, so I don't, you know, I don't know what Supreme Court decisions have personally been made over stormwater, to be perfectly honest. So I don't think any of our members, majority of the members also would not know. So giving a little bit of guidance of where they can direct the runoff, I think is useful still. So I'm fine with EAC's comment and you know, taking Emily's recommendation also with it, but we can.
Bach's comment is on page, I believe it's 52 at the top. There was a citation added from the county that Bach is suggesting is not necessarily appropriate or necessary.
Oh, the comment just got put down lower.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Is the right word should or must? Should means it's optional.
That is correct, Elena.
Where are you talking about for Elena?
There at the previous clause that we were looking at all the way.
Oh, gotcha.
It said stormwater should never be directed. Water should be directed away. And is it water must be directed away, or is it should, and the board has the ability to see otherwise?
The EAC is suggesting the language as it's currently written with the should and then never over or through curb cutouts.
Okay.
Staff's suggestion is if you're going to use explicit words like shall, never, they do mean that literally, and so the DRB will need to be mindful of using those trigger words in terms of reviewing applications.
Right, and I guess that goes hand in hand with Emily's last comment about never over or through. But
yeah, and reading it, I actually would update it to say curb and gutter versus just gutters because it gets a little confusing.
Yeah.
Somebody might just see gutters and be like, okay, we're talking about stormwater, you know, house gutters. But that's at first what I was thinking. I was like, why is that in there? But it would be curb and gutter, I think is a little bit clearer. I mean, Mike's the civil engineer. He can tell us, is that the proper term? Curb and gutter or curb?
I mean, there's moments where it is curb, and there are moments where there would be curb adjacent to a gutter. It doesn't ordinarily they are one. And
I think the intent is not to cut through underneath your sidewalk or whatever it be through the curb into the gutter. I think is the intent of their comment. So,
or have it running across sidewalk and spilling off the side into a collection point, right?
yeah.
I would agree with your point about should be versus never. Right? The softening of the language is probably.
Yeah, those are some things that I feel like would be up to interpretation, because like if a house is being constantly flooded and their sump pump has nowhere else to go, I feel like that's something as a body that we might be able to say like, hey, it is available to you. The county will allow it because of extenuating circumstances. But if we say never, then their house is just gonna continue to flood because some of the grading in this, area is janky. That's the technical term right now. It's janky.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's. Staff, do you have enough feedback to maybe reword that one or no? Is it still kind of confusing?
This will still come back to you all for the public hearing. So yes, we can finagle the language based
Okay.
on your comments.
All right, cool. All right, well, let's jump to our agenda. And then we will come back to this. Did we at least knock out some of them, LaShonda? To get
Yes, we did. We just have a couple more that we can go over at the end of the meeting.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
All right. I will motion to make an amendment to the agenda to move item K back to the end of the agenda so we can get to the members' applications.
Second.
All right, there's a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm
Aye. Okay. All right. Welcome everybody to tonight's meeting. We got a little early, so we were trying to look at some guidelines and elections, but we will jump into the agenda now. Next up on the agenda, we have item G, which is an appeal for 1631 Washington Plaza.
Michael,
Yeah.
member comments.
Oh, are there any general member comments not related to anything tonight on the agenda? Did somebody register with you, Cam? Is that why?
Nope, just wanted to make sure that everyone had their opportunity.
Gotcha. Anybody? All right. Hearing none, we will move on. So next up is item G, which is an appeal for 1631 Washington Plaza. I know we basically deferred this because we were waiting on some additional documentation for staff to get. And so I don't know if staff is going to start with what they've found or if the applicant will start or the appellant will start. How do you want to handle that, staff?
No, the appellant will start. The DRB received staff's results to review beforehand, and then the DRB will make a determination to accept or deny the appeal based on the findings.
And did you guys include that in this application to us?
We did. It's in your Dropbox file under executive session. And so if the DRB would like to discuss what's in the executive session folder, then you all would need to motion to consult with counsel.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, well then I feel like we should do that first. Because the appellant, they have the same case that they did last time and we just weren't able to hear it basically because we wanted some more information. So now we have it. Let's discuss it real quick to bring everyone up to speed. So I'll make a motion to go into executive session to review the findings from staff for this appeal
And to consult with legal counsel.
and to consult with legal counsel.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right, so we'll move into executive session. We'll be right back, everybody.
Camelia, if you can join us in executive session. Should have a pop-up on your screen.
Hold on, sorry. Just trying to figure this out. Okay. Says I'm in the executive session.
You'll have to click join.
I don't have that option.
Let me. Second. If you click more and hit breakout rooms, a screen should pop up. It has a
Funny,
list.
I'm clicking breakout rooms, but nothing is popping up. It just there. Okay, wait. I just clicked on participants, more breakout rooms. I click on breakout rooms and nothing pops up. Should I leave the meeting and come back?
Yeah, let's do that. And Arista, can you make her co-host when she comes back? Amelia, you should have something on your screen now. All right, thanks.
right. Thank you for being patient with us. I am gonna have legal help me make a cleansing motion.
Chair Wood, I believe the motion would be that I move that the members of the DRB certify to the best of each in their knowledge that only as matters appropriate for executive session were heard or discussed in executive session, and such were involving consultation with legal counsel.
I second that. All right, that's what I said. Does
That's
anyone
what you
second
said.
that?
There you go.
That's what you said. I'll second what you said.
All right, and many motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? All right, motion passes. All right, so the appellant is here. I know Mr. Barry, I think, has counsel, so I'm not sure who's speaking for either the appellant or both. But if you guys could unmute them, please.
You're unmuted.
All right, Mr. Barry, Mr. Coward, are you guys there?
I'm here.
All right, if you guys could, we've heard the appeal, but we've heard your case. If you guys have any new comments or anything you want to add to an addition, or whatever, the floor is yours for the appeal.
Chairman Wood, this is John Coward, and I'd like to address all of the members of the Design Review Board. My name is John Coward. I'm counsel to Alec Berry, who is the appellant of this approval that's being appealed here before the full Design Review Board. As I remember, this matter came before the Design Review Board in a few weeks ago. And what happened, honey, I'm in a meeting right now. At that meeting, it was decided that there were certain facts that the Design Review Board needed to know, and they needed to conduct an investigation in order to make an informed decision. At the time, I thought that was a prudent way in which to proceed. Since that time, no new information has been provided to Mr. Berry or to myself about any of the facts that have been that are at issue. I don't know what the nature is of the materials that have been provided to the Design Review Board by staff. Haven't received any responses to my books and records requests to LARCA. And I know that in February, the Lake Ann of Reston condominium conducted a board meeting in which they ratified a denial of Delia Teliano's application. So I do know that they have, that in February, they denied that application. I attended that meeting, and I remember that. And they did invite the parties to a subsequent special meeting. And to my knowledge, no new decision has been made, despite the fact that the LARCA board has met with both of the parties separately for quite a bit of time. So I guess I'm kind of at a point where I don't know what new information that the DRB knows, so I don't know how to address that today, because it's everything. There's really nothing's being provided. So I think that fact really tells me a lot about the situation, and I think that the fact that that those questions haven't been answered, and that supports our appeal that this application should never been approved to begin with. So I guess I'd like to find out what were the results of the investigation that's not privileged.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what basically what we asked for. You guys presented that there was another letter that basically said they did not have approval for the shaft. And we were, that was a new piece of paper that we had never seen. And so we had asked staff to kind of look into that. And that new information, based on what staff presented to us, that was an accurate new piece of information that we were never given at the DRB, that the shaft was never approved by LARCA, and there was an official letter that said it was still not approved by LARCA. So because that has been confirmed, I'm going to make a motion to accept the appeal on those grounds of new information.
Second.
And we have a second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right, so the motion to accept the appeal has happened. Is there Elena, I think you have a motion to make on the application?
Yes, thank you. I make a motion that we refer the application to staff and request that staff communicate with the applicant to help them submit a complete application.
All right, is there a second of that? I will second that. Any further discussion? The only thing I would add is that would submit a complete application with formal condo approval for
I accept
a common area and element.
I accept that amendment.
All right. So there's a motion and a second, some further discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 8-0. All right, thank you guys. So the applicant will need to work with staff now that the appeal has been granted, and they will be in touch with Deli Italiano for their next steps. All right, Cam, is that correct?
We will be in touch with LARCA for next steps for their application.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. Moving on to application H, which is West Cove Cluster.
This is also an appeal, and the appellant has been unmuted. Christine?
Hello,
Hello?
can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear.
You want me to speak about the appeal now?
Well, yep, just give me 1 second. So you're appealing a decision about a crosswalk. So basically the way our appeal process works is you need to provide a misapplied guideline or if there's any new information available. So I know you submitted a letter with your attachment, but this is your time to present your case for the appeal.
Okay, yes, I'll summarize all the attachments that I turned in from that time. Good evening, my name is Christine Canafic. I'm a West Cove homeowner at house 2029, and being second closest to the crosswalk, I'm both an affected party and an appellant for the crosswalk. In keeping with the appearance, the design integrity, the architectural design and aesthetic character of Reston, the crosswalk should be reverted to an unmarked crosswalk for the following reasons. When the Silver Line came through Reston, the Virginia Department of Transportation, or VDOT, upgraded or installed its own crosswalks on public roads, and they were brought up to federal guidelines and that sort of thing, with pedestrian warning signs, at least a stop sign, and at times pedestrian islands, blinking lights, and overhead lighting. And within this design integrity and appearance of Reston, many other crossings were left unmarked, specifically crossings of the Reston Association Trail with private streets, and even the crossing pool parking lot at Ridge Heights and Glade, they seem to revert from marked to unmarked at this time. And I looked at South Reston, and this grouping of unmarked crosswalks includes some 21 of them that I found where the RA Trail crosses private streets. And like West Cove's, 9 of them are mid-block, 8 of them are around Lake Thoreau, and 4 of them are on private streets that lead out to Ridge Heights Road, just as Turtle Pond Drive does. And with no lighting, no signs to prohibit parking, no pedestrian warning signs, and the fact that it's on a hill and a bit on a curve, West Coast Crosswalk belongs in this grouping where the RA Trail crosses private streets and should be unmarked. The RA Trail at West Cove, it's part of a loop trail around Lake Thoreau. That's actually a quiet loop trail from pedestrian counts. At Turtle Pond Drive, the count averaged only about 5 to 7 per hour, which is much lower than the 15 to 20 that's recommended for marked crosswalks. And most of these pedestrians were overwhelmingly simply adults taking a walk or walking their dogs, an occasional jogger. So the West Cove residents, like all the other homeowners in these other clusters with private streets, deserve to have the tranquility of just the plain black asphalt without the bright white lines like all the 21 other private crossings, within the appearance, the design integrity, and aesthetic character of Reston. On a local level, such a marked crosswalk will blend in with the deep redwood siding, gray, almost black front and back doors, the oak trees, the pine trees of West Cove, which
Pardon me,
for
Christine?
thank you.
Would the DRB
crossing
like
is
to
unmarked.
would the DRB like to extend your time? I'm sorry, that's the time that we have allowed it for.
Thank you. Yes, I completed
Thank you.
my summary.
Okay. Thank you. So staff, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have any guidelines for painted things on streets, correct? Because most of the streets we don't even control because they're VDOT. Because this was the whole thing that came up with the bike stations that they put in the VDOT right away. But this road is privately owned by the cluster?
Yes, the road is privately owned, but the guidelines I did find from the Federal Highway Administration and National Association of City Transportation Officials, they didn't seem to specify that those sorts of guidelines were for public roads and not private roads. They seem to apply to all kinds of situations.
Okay, all right. Thank you, ma'am. But LaShonda, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have guidelines for.
We don't.
Okay, all right. And then is there so this is an appeal, correct? So we need to accept the appeal before we would hear the case. So just if you're on the call, a part of the cluster or whatnot, I saw a hand raise up. We would only be able to talk to you once the appeal is accepted, if it is accepted, because then we would hear the case de novo. So just kind of sit tight, please. All right. Does anyone have any thoughts on this? Comments? Was this approved at panel, staff? What was it even approved at?
This was approved at the January 9th panel meeting. That is correct.
And so how did it originate? Did the cluster submit the application for the painted crosswalk?
That is correct.
The cluster was told by RA staff that they did not need approval, which was incorrect. They did need approval for exterior changes. And so they submitted the application after the fact. And after the fact, there was an affected party that was registered.
This is a tricky one because I don't feel like. So I guess what guideline are you talking about, Cam, that dictates that we would have needed to review this? Because I thought if anything was below 4 inches,
So the deed establishes that any exterior change requires DRB approval unless the design guideline establishes a different level of review. Because there is no design guideline, it requires DRB approval. So the DRB will need to review this application with a certain level of reasonableness absent a design guideline.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I guess I'm just curious. I'm looking at the photo on page 5, which shows the crosswalk and then shows white painted parking spots. We didn't have to review the parking spot layout. So is this any different than that?
In terms of the original design of the neighborhood, the DRB would have reviewed the original design. If they restripe the parking lot, that does not require DRB approval. And that's where this came into an issue, was that the lines were not originally there, is my understanding.
Okay. It's just tough to tell whether a guideline was misapplied if we don't have one. So that's why it's in that I'm looking at it from the appeal standpoint, right? Because the appellant is saying that there's, we misapplied a guideline, but we don't have guidelines. The guidelines they provided are not ours. So it's unfortunately it's not a common thing that we normally see. So I just am kind of in a little bit of a pickle of looking at the appeal because of those exact reasons of exactly what our terms say, which is it has to be a misapplied guideline, which we don't have a guideline that could have been misapplied.
This would be no different if the DRB was reviewing, let's say, a cluster wanted to designate 2 spaces as EV spaces, and they wanted to put electric vehicle charging stamps in the parking space or a handicap stamp in the parking space. That still is subject to the DRB review, even though there is no design guideline for it.
Have we had to review that before?
You will be in a couple of months.
Great. Okay.
But then wouldn't the other reason to accept an appeal be new information if there's not a guideline? Wouldn't we have to evaluate if there's new information here?
Yeah, but it's tricky because an appellant can always bring new information that the previous applicant, like we wouldn't ask the applicant to go, count the number of pedestrian crossings at, or what did everyone else do in the area? As an example, we would, to me, at least I wouldn't normally ask for that sort of, if we were to look at this case from the beginning. So to me, I don't see that we misapplied a guideline. And I don't see that there's necessarily new information that the applicant would have brought ahead of, for the appeal or, for the original application. I wouldn't have asked them to provide all that information.
No, I guess I'm asking, did the affected party present new information in the appeal?
Well, they did, yeah, right. So they presented that, based on National Highway Association or whatever the nomenclature.
That was actually in the original application. So on page 39.
That was part of the original affected party statement, wasn't it, Kim?
That's correct.
Page 30. Okay, so who was on the panel who approved this? Who can't vote anyway?
Elena, Sarah, and Emily.
Elena, Sarah, and Emily. Okay. So do you guys feel like there's new information presented tonight that you did not see the night that you made the motion or the decision?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't see any new information.
Okay, so you had all that information that the appellant presented tonight when you guys made the decision.
I don't remember the appellant's exact words. So, but I don't believe anything new has been presented.
Staff, does that sound accurate? Was this appeal, was it basically the same as the affected party statement?
With some additional information added, it was amended
Okay.
to include some additional information.
So I'd like to revise what I said. I don't think anything substantive was added.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have any thoughts, comments?
No, I think I'm sharing in the sentiment here. I'm not seeing anything new. I don't think there was a misapplied guideline. I'd go so far as to make a motion, Michael, if you were ready for one.
Go for it, man.
I'll make a motion to deny the appeal.
All right, there's a motion. Just a reminder, Elena, Sarah, and Emily, you cannot vote. Do I hear a second on that? I will second it. I also think there was no new information as well, new substantive new information. All right, so we'll take a vote. I'm going to just do a roll call vote because we are down a couple people due to abstentions. So all those in favor, and I'll go around the room. Camelia, do you vote in the affirmative or negative?
Affirmative.
All right. Brian,
Affirmative.
Mike B,
Affirmative.
John,
Aye, affirmative.
Samantha,
Aye.
and I also vote aye. Elena, how do you vote?
I can't.
Nope.
You abstain? No, I know. I was
Oh,
gonna.
I'm sorry,
Fair enough.
And then Emily,
I abstain.
you also abstain. All right. So motion to deny the appeal passes 6-0-2. All right. Thank you. All right. Moving on to application I, which is 11414 Waterview Cluster.
While we're unmuting the applicant, this was done on the April 2nd panel. A DRB member pulled the decision and referred it to full board for your consideration. This does have to do with the reasonable accommodations that the Covenants Committee has been reviewing for health exemptions for air conditioning units in clusters that are serviced by RELAC. And I believe the decision was to suggest an alternative location that was maybe more desirable, in a location that was away from the front door and away from the party wall. And I believe the applicant has been unmuted, so the applicant will review the application as if they did prior the first time. And then if the DRB would like to ask questions and entertain any.
So that's what I was going to ask. So it's not a defer. We basically pulled it. So there was no decision ever made. So this is just starting over.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Is the applicant here?
Yep. Hey.
All right. If you guys could walk us through your application. We're full board here now, so there's a lot more of us. So if you could walk us through from the beginning, that'd be great. And then we'll hear from any affected parties, and then we'll come back and ask any questions. Okay.
Cool. So we submitted our, I guess, design. I don't know. Do you want to talk about this design review process to the exact standards of the Waterview Cluster and Resident Association? And then from our understanding, it was like in this nebulous manner. We have our medical exemption. You know, there was, I guess, concerns about potential noise issues, and we're going to put a screen around it to mitigate noise. We're also willing to put up vegetation to help buffer noise even further. But like logistically putting it on the other side of the house, opposite of our furnace room, is going to create like a tremendous economic burden on that. But we'd also have to remove tremendous amount of vegetation, grade the land, and it's just not a best practices as defined by our contractors that we're working with. And I think some of the affected applicants have already pulled out of that position as well. So I'm not sure if there's any clarification needed.
Well, I guess, can you present so if you could present where you're saying to put the unit, and
Sure.
then what exact screening you're gonna put, kind of around it, just so we have that for the record.
Hi, I'm the one that submitted the application. When I submitted the application, I followed the water view guidelines, and it says that the system should be on an offset wall. So it'd be back there. It's actually set, once it's placed with the enclosure, it's 30 inches back from that wall of the neighbor. And that's what the water view cluster guidelines say, is that it should be offset by the party wall. And then it is supposed to, they have an enclosure guidelines, and it's supposed to be painted the color of the brick. When I did the review with the design and review board, they suggested putting it next to the deck, painting it the color of the deck, which doesn't follow the guidelines. And that's also not where our furnace, it would be easiest to run the line to our furnace room where it's supposed to be positioned. And also by the deck, the grade actually slopes down. So I don't even know if we could put the HVAC unit there.
Okay.
And what Brad was saying about the noise is the guidelines say 72 decibel, and we followed the 72 decibel guidelines, and we got a sound blanket, and there will be an enclosure built around it.
Mike, if I may.
Well, hold on. There's affected, or do you have a question? I mean, you can ask. There's some affected parties, so I just need to hear from them first once they're done.
It's not a question. It was just my understanding, I was on the board that deferred this. It wasn't to refer it to a full board. It was to allow time for the cluster to revise their standards, which they said they were in the process of doing, and they attended the meeting, the panel review, and we wanted to give them the opportunity to do that.
Okay.
Sure. And I mean, that would be kind of predictive regulations. And it would be impossible for us to follow something. And like, wouldn't that potentially be considered selective enforcement if we weren't to enforce the rules by how they work? They also remove themselves of the affected party as well.
Okay. Okay, so that's new that they removed themselves, but the photograph that's not being shown is that the deck protrudes beyond the face of the house, and there is a re-entrant corner similar to what occurs where they intend to place it, that actually, as a homeowner, I would think that they would be more pleased, because regardless of the sound, when you're standing next to a condensing unit, it's going to blast heat in the summer. And it was to give them the opportunity to place it in a place that wasn't adjacent to their front door. Staff showed us that picture when we were viewing the application. It's over to the right of, it's chopped off, it's cropped off on the right-hand side of this photo. But it, you know, I guess the point is that the applicant is, and staff didn't quite convey what happened at the last panel meeting.
Yeah, we prefer it to be in this position.
Excuse me, if the applicant, you know, doesn't want the option of placing it away from their front door and having that noise and heat when people come to their front door and when they go to their front door, that, you know, we were trying to provide an option. We were not asking for it to come to the full board.
Okay. Well, I think it got pulled just because I don't know. I'd never seen it happen. Just in the email, I think there was the decision didn't want to get, I guess, published the way that it was written officially. So it got pulled.
Oh, excuse me. One last thing. At the time, we didn't have their documentation of the medical exemption.
Gotcha. Okay. So staff, do we have, before we go into it, do we have affected parties that are registered and wanted to speak on this tonight?
We do have a registered affected party, Linda, that I was not able to identify. So Linda, if you're here, raise your hand. Linda Holloway.
And while she's doing that, I just want to clarify one small aspect. There were two applications on April 2nd that were reviewed by the DRB. One did not have the medical exemption and one did have the
Oh,
medical
did I
exemption.
get that wrong? Sorry.
Yes, so this property did have their medical exemption when they submitted their application.
Thank you, Kim.
Make sure everyone had the same information. Yep.
All right, so Linda doesn't appear to be present, and the cluster vice president also registered as an affected party, but decided that they didn't want to be a part of this review. They didn't have any updated comments and wanted to be removed.
Okay. Okay. So no one's going to speak on it. All right. So now we can open up for questions to the applicant. Thank you for clarifying, Elena, what you guys had seen and what you were trying to do. I agreed the first time I saw this, having it right by the front door was a little odd, but then once you kind of look at the lot and you look at, it being an end unit, it being, the guidelines, to me, they are actually meeting what their guidelines suggest for where to put it, because they are in a little bit of a unique thing. To me, if you put it on the side, you actually are kind of facing the lake, which is kind of against their guidelines.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We were not suggesting they put it on the side. We were suggesting they put it on the front at the re-entrant corner where their deck, that is incorrect. The deck protrudes beyond the front face of yes. If you look at that blue area, we were suggesting that instead of placing it right next to their front door, they placed it on the other corner, in that corner, right there where the cursor is.
Gotcha. And how do you know that? Did you visit the site, or?
Staff pulled up a picture
Gotcha.
of the site because we were questioning whether to defer the decision until we could review that area.
Gotcha. Okay. Does anyone else have any, or I'll just go around the room and see if anyone has any questions for the applicant, and then we'll have some discussion. Camelia, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Not at this time.
All right. Brian, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Emily?
I don't have any questions for the applicant, no.
Mike B?
Nope.
All right. John?
No.
Samantha?
No question.
Elena?
Nope. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question. So for this deck that Elena is mentioning with that sun deck there, is it true that it extends past the front of the house, just for clarification's sake?
I think maybe the steps potentially.
Yeah, steps do.
So there's steps. So it's not like you could block them.
Yeah, it's like
There's 3 or 4 steps that come
Yeah.
up to the deck, but
because it's graded down.
Okay. And
Lashonda,
there's no way to put it under the deck. There's not enough height
really.
there.
No.
Okay.
Can we pull up that photo that we're referring to?
Yeah.
Because I think that'll clear up a lot of the back and forth, because we had the same questions, Michael, when we were looking at this application originally.
I mean, yeah, and the way we have to look at this too, guys, is it's a temporary install. So we're trying to get them to screen it as much as they can, but it's a temporary install. So when they sell, it goes away. So
again, we were trying to give the applicant an option that the cluster guidelines were too stringent, right? They didn't consider what happens with a end unit. As guidelines often do, they don't consider all the permutations. We were trying to give the applicant an option, the opportunity for the applicant to pursue with the cluster, who said they were willing to look at different guidelines, an opportunity to place it someplace where they would be happier. We were not trying to keep them from doing exactly what they're doing if they were there, right next to that stair, right where that one tall tree is that's not extensive tree removal. We were trying to give them the opportunity to as a homeowner, provide a more satisfactory location.
Gotcha.
They
Okay.
don't want it, whatever.
Okay.
You also,
All right. So, can you just leave that picture up, Steph? I mean, I think to me, if they're, I'm not opposed to it either location. I think there actually would be a decent amount of vegetation that would probably need to be taken out. I think that's looks like a sky pencil holly, maybe. Emily, don't get mad at me for misnaming plants. Maybe there's some lower, I don't know, boxwoods or skip laurels. I can't really tell what those are. Whereas the space they're presenting to take it out is really, it looks like it's like a rose bush thing. Is that accurate, applicant? Can you guys unmute the applicant real quick?
Yeah, it's like this bush that we don't even really like. So it's just encroaching into our walkway.
So
And that's actually our preference. We think it's going to be like more aesthetically pleasing. And like this is a house on the lake, and like we want to be cognizant of like the aesthetic beauty of this neighborhood. And we personally think like that's the more desirable location in our opinion, and feasibility. Like our furnace room is just like right there on that side of the house.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the location of the furnace room we don't have control of where the furnace room is. So we're trying, we try to work with people on that, but sometimes it's, if it's right in front of their house and it's right next to a neighbor. This one is nice because it does have the party wall that does step out. So to me, noise is not going to be a concern to your neighbor. It's really just going to be a noise concern to yourself. Is this just a condenser, correct? This is not a heat pump?
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's only gonna be running during cooling season. And then you guys said you were willing to add some additional vegetation back kind of in front of the screen that you're proposing for your guidelines.
Yeah. Help like buffer the noise.
Yeah, so knowing all that, I guess let's have some discussion. Does anyone have any other further thoughts? I was gonna throw a motion out there, but I didn't want to step out of line.
How tall does the screen have to be around it? Is it just tall enough to cover the
It
unit?
says as required may vary.
Right. So I was asking the applicant how tall they intended.
Yeah, they're just supposed to build it just to the height of the unit. So it's not like unnecessarily taller than the unit.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and the unit looks like to be a little bit of a shorter, version, style. So my guess is it's going to be no more than 42 inches tall, maybe even not even that tall. Any other comments?
My only question, I guess, is to address Elena's issue. And again, the applicants, I do believe for what it's worth, did follow the standards that they have in front of them. And yes, it might be more economical to put it near the furnace room, but as Michael touched on, we don't really touch on economy here because we can't. There's too many things that go into individual properties. My only question, this is more for staff, is if we can still encourage the cluster to open up their guidelines to allow for alternative placements, sort of because of this application. Can we continue that ball rolling even if we say, yes, this is approved and we go forward? But that's more of a lava ball up in the air question than something more definitive.
So Waterview Cluster's current standard actually, it's worded in a funky way that allows, it's like that should shall kind of conversation in terms of an alternative location, which is where Elena was coming from. Their updated cluster standard, which is going to be reviewed at the 423 panel, actually does encourage an alternative location specifically for in-unit townhomes.
Encourage or require?
Opportunist.
Okay.
The opportunity.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
it
And I
provides
think-
the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think if, depending on the property and what existing vegetation exists and, what potential impact you may have on existing vegetation, I think that might be the right location, right? To put it over there by the deck. Here, I don't think it really visually impacts, it's still going to visually impact the front of the house regardless of where we put it. And this is where the applicant wants it. It meets the guidelines. And to me, it impacts less substantial vegetation, greenery than if we do suggest it to kind of go over by the deck. So to me, the applicants, weighed the pros and cons, and that, it's their house ultimately. And like I said, it's temporary. So
If I may, again, the panel, I think it was me, Mike, and Emily, we were trying to give the applicant options. If the applicant really wants a condenser right next to their front door, and even though heat, it only happens in the cooling season, I get it, but condensers throw off wind and hot wind and heat, and all the plants next to that are above and near my condenser die because of the heat it throws off, and it's a new condenser. If they want that next to their front door, I certainly will vote no affirmative for any motion. We were trying to give the applicant an option.
Gotcha. Okay.
For what it's worth, if you transplant the Nandina that's there at that location where they're going to put the HVAC unit right in front of the screen, it'll do just fine.
Okay.
No guarantees. It's still a plant, but
Yeah.
it's an Andina.
It's an Andina, not roses. So I did make
no.
a mistake on a plant.
I heard you, Mike, and I was running back up here to tell you that you were wrong. I'm just kidding.
So with all that said, what I'm going to do is I'm make a motion to approve the application with the following amendment, that some form of vegetative screening to be proposed, whether it's that existing plant just moved forward or some sort of other vegetative screening to be planted kind of in front of the screen proposed to help buffer the visual and sound impact of the proposed unit there. And to submit that to staff for just verification. So Emily, do you have any suggestions of what might work there? Do you think even just like a skip laurel bush or something? Or
no, don't put a broadleaf evergreen in front of an air conditioning unit. The Nandina, a grass, something that is going to be very hardy and not mind the drying and heating. Don't put a broadleaf evergreen in front of an air conditioning unit if you want it to live.
That's why she's a landscape architect and I'm just an architect. So take that suggestion, but just submit that to staff. But overall, the location is fine. And so please submit that to staff within 90 days of this approval letter.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against?
Mike B abstains.
Any abstentions? I was going to say any abstentions. Mike B abstains. All right. So motion passes 7-0-1. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
All right. Purple Sage Cluster. They are back with their light proposal.
Aaron, the cluster president is unmuted.
All right. Welcome back. So we deferred you guys back in October, asking for a little bit better photometric plan. Do you want to take it away and explain kind of what you got, or do you want to? Yeah, let's just do that because I think that's what we asked for, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So we've tried contacting multiple contractors to get a professional photometric study. Essentially, no one wanted to do it unless they were going to get the full contract to install the lights, which it's not possible because right now we're looking at Dominion. Unfortunately, Dominion doesn't provide photometric studies for whatever reason. So Gavin Norris, our vice president, was able to work some magic with Adobe or Photoshop. I'm not sure how he did it, and he put together a photometric study using the isoplot information that we received from Dominion. In doing that, we also decided, because the original plan was to install 33 lights, which would have included 8 additional to the original 25. Because we couldn't get a professional photometric study that would have helped us figure out, alignment and proper placement for new lights, we just decided to drop those 8 additional for now and come back to those down the road if we deem it necessary. So all 25 lights would be installed in the exact same location that the previous lights were located. I believe you also asked about light trespass shields. I spoke to Dominion, and with the current light fixture we're looking at, the cutoff Colonial, those do not allow for installation of any light trespass shields. But we think with using the current location of the lights and proper alignment in relation to the houses, that any light trespass issues will be minimal.
Well, for the record, the photometric is great. That's exactly what we need. So you did a great job. Whoever did it, the vice president, kudos. That's really all we're looking for when we're asking for it. It doesn't need to be done by a professional. So I appreciate you guys getting that put together. And it looks just like any other photometric plan that I've seen before. So let me go. I think is there any affected party, staff?
Yes, there are affected parties, I believe.
Are they here
I'm-
tonight?
Laura Wells. Yes, I'm going to unmute her now.
So just a reminder to affected parties, you have 3 minutes to make a statement. If you're representing a group, which I guess any of the neighboring clusters, if they are an affected party, you would have 5 minutes. So
Then if we don't have a camera, that's okay.
Okay. Sorry, my camera is not quite working. But I'm here with my husband. We live on 12136 Purple Sage Court. Basically, we just wanted to make it clear we're an affected party because one of the lights in question is right in front of our house, and it's been out since we moved here.
And I mean, we think it's important to get lights. So I mean,
Yeah.
we don't mind the fact that it's right in front of the house. I mean, the fact that it's been there that the light was already there must indicate it must be all right there. So
Yeah.
we are perfectly fine with it being there.
We're okay with the plan. We just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of it.
Yeah.
And because we really do want the light to be replaced.
We've got to have the light.
It's very dark on our court, and it's kind of becoming and it seems like it's kind of a safety hazard.
Exactly. That's all we had.
That was what we mainly came here to say, that we are fine with the plan to go forward, and we're perfectly happy to have it replaced, even though it's right in front of our house.
Yep.
awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Anyone else, staff?
Yes, there's one more affected party. I'm unmuting Robert now.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. And I want to give thanks to the hard work being done by Gavin Norris on the photometric study. It's a long overdue project, and it has become a safety issue. We had we were to, not myself personally, but a neighbor's catalytic converter was stolen because the neighborhood was so dark. I do have one issue, and I'm looking at page 1 of the application. And when you look to the second paragraph, where it talks about disconnecting existing wiring, where it says 1 panel and 1 meter will be transferred to the neighboring cluster association. Even after many discussions with many people on the board, even walkthroughs and show and tells, we share 2 meters with the neighboring cluster, Country Walk. What we do will impact them. I just wish this application was accurate, because there are 2 panels and meters that need to be transferred to Country Walk, and that's something they definitely need to be made aware of. Secondly, with the lights going into one replacement, what has happened over the the 40 or so years that this association has been here, there's a lot of trees and foliage that have grown around where those light poles are. So I would strongly suggest that an arborist be contacted, because what caused a lot of the older poles to fall down was the overgrowth of trees and branches knocking into the fixtures and the poles, causing them to fall. We put the same thing in place down the same location without addressing the overgrowth. I'm not saying taking any trees down, but some pruning needs to be done that affects will affect the light distribution and also the longevity of the new panels. So that's all I got. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Any other affected party staff?
No other affected parties.
So can you guys unmute the applicant, Aaron, again? Please.
I think I'm unmuted.
Okay. So for in your application, you say you're going to remove 2 electrical panels, disconnect the existing wiring from existing poles and lights, and remove the wire from the circuit breakers in 2 of the electrical panels. Pressure treated posts and concrete base for the 2 of the electrical panels will also be removed. 1 panel meter will be transferred to neighboring cluster association. So all these lights are owned by Dominion and so therefore metered by Dominion, I'm assuming?
The new ones will be, yes.
Okay. So currently they're not owned by Dominion. Is that accurate?
Correct. Currently we own the previous lights.
Gotcha. So you're switching over to them. So you guys won't even need a meter essentially for your
No,
there'll be no meter or pole on your property is in this application is my understanding.
Correct. Yeah, there is one time it should be 3 meters. There are currently 3 meters on our property. 2 of those have been shut off. One of those is still turned on because that is one that we share with Country Walk.
It's the one that's being relocated and off, and the other 2 are being completely removed.
Yes.
Okay.
We have approved a proposal from an electrician to have our wiring removed from that shared meter. And once that's completed, we will transfer ownership of that shared meter to Country Walk. So it will stay in place, but they will own it and receive the bill for it. The other meter that Bob was referring to, we've heard talks of, but we don't have any documentation of a second shared meter. So when our electrician comes out later this month, they're going to look into it and see if they can trace back where all of the lights are powered from. If it is a second shared meter with Country Walk, I've been in communication with their president to have our electrician remove our wires from that as well. And they already own it, so there won't need to be any transfership of ownership. It's on their property.
Okay.
But it's just, we can't confirm that there is a second shared meter.
Okay. And then my final question for you is, I can't remember because it's been a little while. Are you guys keeping the existing concrete bases as well? Or
Those
are
will be
all pulled out?
Those will all be removed. We've also approved a proposal to have those removed. Right now, we're just waiting to hopefully coordinate with Dominion. So that when Dominion's ready to install, our contractor will come in and remove the lights and they can install in the exact same place. We just don't want to remove them right now and then have holes that we need to fill in only to dig out in hopefully a few months.
Okay. I just couldn't remember from the original application if you were removing those or not. I thought you were, but I wasn't 100% sure.
They'll be removed and the new lights will be direct burial, so there won't be concrete base.
Okay, great. All right. Let me go around the room, see if anyone has any questions for you, and then we'll have some discussion. Camelia, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Brian?
I think we answered last time. I'm sorry, I apologize. But at the fixture, does it have lenses in it? Are they clear? Are they frosted?
There's no lenses. It's a cutoff colonial.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, no lenses. It's just a cutoff colonial.
Yeah, there's like an LED in the top of it, Brian, that just shines downwards.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I get
There's
it.
no
I see it
bulb
now.
or anything. It's an LED up in the top of the fixture that basically shines
Thank you.
down.
I get it. Thank you. Sorry.
Emily?
No questions for me.
Mike D?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
John? John, you there still?
Help if I unmute. No.
Any questions, John?
Nope.
Samantha, any questions?
No question, thank you.
Elena, any questions?
No, thank you.
I don't have any questions. I already asked them all. I think it's a good application. I appreciate the photometric. I think it helped. I think it did show honestly that I don't think they need any more lighting than the 25 they have based on what I saw. So I think it was worth it. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it as submitted.
All right, there's a motion to approve as submitted. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, there's a second. Any further discussion on that? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 8-0. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck, guys. All right. Back to LaShonda.
All right, so we left off,
I think we're on string lights, maybe.
on string lights, yes. Okay, so if you go to page 56, there are two comments. I'm gonna jump around a little bit. Page 56, there was a comment that requested clarity on the avenue for members to install holiday lights, which does not require DRB approval. This type of request should not require DRB attention for string lights.
Wait, so their comment was saying we shouldn't have anything for string lights, or they were saying that we need to just put something in here that says
For holiday lighting.
this is not the same as holiday lighting.
Right.
Don't we have something though, Cam, for temporary holiday lighting? I mean, I could be wrong about it, but I thought we did.
We do not.
So conceivably, you could put up lighting permanently that's holiday lighting?
Yeah, people do that in my neighborhood.
Yeah, okay. I mean, what defines a string light versus a holiday light? Is my question.
Good questions.
I think if we say anything about a holiday light, it has to say temporary and it has to define what temporary means.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, to me, holiday lighting, you could argue that it's string lighting as well. Just for the record, I mean, I'm not getting down that path, but I just don't know what more clarity we really would give to clean this up, in my opinion.
I think to provide a clarification point here, we do contend that string lights are holiday lights. The green lights that you see on your holiday tree and around the railings on the front door, those are string lights. However, what this comment is really trying to make sure that we're differentiating between this particular situation and holiday lighting. And what if a member wants to install holiday lighting that is, as you all know, all encompassing? There's lots of different holidays throughout the year, and making sure that if someone wanted it up permanently or not, should that be addressed in the design guideline that's separate from your typical outdoor string light that is hanging or on bushes or whatever people are doing these days, because you'd be amazed at what you would see in a community currently. So that's where this is coming from, is really, should holiday lights have its own special bullet point where no applications needed for holiday lights that are temporary.
I think you just make the differentiation between permanent string lights and temporary string lights, and you do not add the word holiday to anything, because then people are going to argue that 4th of July and Halloween, like you could leave them up for every single holiday, really, and have them be there. But like, I think Elena is exactly right. If we are going to say temporary, we need to say what temporary means. Because personally, I don't mind if someone has the same set of LED lights up all year round and changes the color to accommodate every single holiday. But if we're going to say you can put up temporary lights specifically with no DRB approval, we need to be very, very careful or specific on what temporary means. Because I don't care if you go out there and you knock those things down every month and you put new ones up, or you do, you boo, like go crazy with the holiday lighting. But we need to make that distinction if we're going to make the separation happen. And maybe perhaps just say an application is only required for permanent string lighting. And then, maybe we have to define what permanent is. And maybe that would be easier to say permanent is
I
any
think
lighting.
permanent's easier.
Or any lighting that will be installed for a period of 6 months or more should be considered permanent.
Yeah.
That would be an easier way to just say, let's define what permanent is. And that way temporary is anything less than that. Which I feel like would be an easier hoop to jump through for a lot of people. That's my 2 cents.
Do we care if they're, and I don't mean to pick on my vice chair Mike, but do we need to stipulate that they don't flash or change colors? Somebody over in Mike's cluster has string lights that like do little drips, and you know
Whatever
what I
do
mean?
you
The
need?
light starts as a little drip and then it's like an icicle and then it stops and then it goes back.
That's a good question,
yeah.
though. I mean, is there a discussion in terms of style? I mean, this is specific. We're trying to address the string lights, right? Based on some previous action we've seen. If we get into the holiday lighting, we open it up to all sorts of business, right?
I would rather not from an enforcement standpoint. Just
I hear you there.
He's going around timing the lights, like how often they change. I don't know.
Well, then Cam's measuring inflatables and Lord knows what else. And nobody needs that.
Well, but I do think, and I don't know, there's always going to be a one-off person or if you have your Clark Griswold who wants to, do that all year round, then it would be a light pollution issue. And I feel like there should be, if you can put up your Christmas lights, as long as you're not polluting light onto other people's properties and causing a nuisance, maybe there's a way to just simply say that from and that's what we went with. The biggest thing with the string lights and how we ended up with kind of the guideline with where we were was to try to eliminate, we started talking about foot candles, then we were talking about lumens, then we were trying to limit it to number of bulbs. So that way, the light pollution to other people's property was potentially not as impacted. And so I think personally, I don't think we should address holiday lighting. I think we just leave it string lights the way it is.
But I agree with them. I would like to see it say string lights location and permanent string lights strands on houses, meaning string lights that are installed for a period of more than 6 months on, an house push that meaning and defining permanent. I think that goes a long way because I think you're gonna unless you do that, someone could argue that my Christmas lights have to be turned off when I'm not outside enjoying them. Somebody could, just saying.
And also, I think the whole thing is that with holiday lights, everyone is a lot more tolerant of them because they know that there is a
temporary aspect.
It's temporary, right? You're like, I can live with this. It's temporary. So it doesn't matter how crazy or flashy or singy they are because not everyone, but people mostly are like, all right, whatever, I can live with this for a month or two. But if you had a permanent flashing display in your yard, people don't want to live with the permanent. That's why I think we are dealing with a lot of these applications and people getting fussy about it, is the idea that this is in and it's always going to be this way. So maybe, like Elena said, just addressing if a permanent light installation is going to take place as permanent, anything over 6 months, the light should be static, stationary, non-flashing, not causing epilepsy. I don't know. Like, but I do think that there is validity in making a definition, but not necessarily like, we don't want to say the word holiday lighting at all. Just excluding it by the very nature of being more specific about what we're saying with the string lights. So that way we don't even have to address holiday lighting. It's like, it's not permanent. Meh.
So we've invoked the 6 months a couple of times. I mean, how does the crowd feel about 6 months as a
Maybe that's
permanent?
too long.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I was just throwing it. That's a long time.
Yeah, maybe it's 2 months, maybe.
3 months is a quarter. That's a whole quarter. I mean, like, a lot
Love
of
it.
people put their lights up December to, or January or whatever, or
Thanksgiving
November to
to
January.
January.
Yeah, I mean, a quarter feels right. 3 months.
Yeah,
I mean,
3 months feels better.
ish. I mean, Michael, I don't want to yank control. But
No, it's fine. Once again, it's always going to come down to an enforcement thing, and these guidelines are here to strictly help Cam and his staff if there is the odd person who's going to make a statement with lighting. It is essentially he needs something to be able to back himself, because anybody could argue that anything is temporary, because if they could take it down for one day and then put it right back up. And who's going to enforce them taking it down for one day? Right. So that would be my only, we could define permanence all day long or temporary all day long. And, people are always going to find a way to skirt around it if they want to. So to me, we just need to give something Cam to be able to enforce. And so
Yeah.
we can define it if you guys want to. I just don't know.
I'm just thinking of it in the reverse. I don't want people to come to the DRB because they don't particularly like someone's Christmas lights. I'm actually thinking of the reverse, trying to protect them from complaints from temporary lighting.
Yeah. I mean, I could think of an application, like when I drive into my neighborhood, there's a townhouse community that I pass, and there's one house that's had holiday lights, let's call them, up for the last 2 years. And they change between Halloween, Christmas, Hanukkah, who knows, every holiday you could keep them up all year round. I think that's what Cam is saying, is like, it's hard to enforce something because I don't know if they've actually taken them down and then put them back up, but they appear like they're always up, in my opinion. I don't know though.
But that would be, those would be the applications where, like, I know companies that do this right now. They're putting up permanent holiday lighting with the idea that you can cycle it through for each individual holiday. However, that now would have to go to an application. You are putting in permanent lighting. I don't care if you're planning on changing the color every 3 months. You are putting a permanent light fixture in your house or outside your house that's going to permanently affect your neighbors. I don't care if it's purple. I don't care if it's orange. I don't care if it's your football team. It's permanent, and it's going to potentially affect your neighbors permanently. Whether or not they, change it up or not doesn't affect the fact that it's permanent.
Can I offer that while 100% on the money, does stray away from the string light business here? I mean, because to your point, it's kind of like the LED tube lighting, right? That they're
no, you can do
it with
like
string lights.
You can do it with string lights. You can do it with soffits. If you have money, honey, they can do it. Which, again, we have some very affluent neighborhoods in Reston, and it is becoming more of a thing, which is one of the reasons why I kind of want to get the cart in front of the horse, or the horse in front of the cart, of saying, like, this is a thing that is happening more often, of people wanting to put up permanent holiday lighting and being able to cycle through March Madness, their favorite football team, whatever. But it's still permanent lighting, and it is on a string, but it's, bulbs, and they're, it's a thing that can happen.
Steph, could we find a way to put in permanent longer than 3 months somewhere? Permanent as defined as more than 3 months is can you find somewhere to put that in here in the wording?
Sure.
Sorry, Michael, I'm passionate about lighting too.
No, it's fine. I'm a pessimist when it comes to lighting. I always think there's going to be the worst case scenario that somebody's going to take advantage of the situation versus because that to me is the only time it's ever going to come to the board, right? It's the only time is when somebody takes advantage of the situation and then somebody complains about it. And that's the only time that we're really truly going to ever be able to enforce these things. And so I don't want to be like so detail focused because like I also want to give Cam ability to, actually, do a little bit of enforcement to keep the people from going crazy.
So do we need to remove the references seasonal holiday purposes, like as it goes over to the next page? It's the first thing on the next page.
Yeah, it's got to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
Why do we have a line item? Because they may not be used for safety or security purposes. That's just out of curiosity.
I think the security lighting is a separate standard, right?
well, I think some people will just literally put up string lights along their whole entire perimeter of their fence as an example and claim that it's security lighting. Right? They're claiming it's a lighting their yard for their dogs to go pee at 5 a.m. in the morning or 3 a.m. or whatever. So I think the intent of that, and Cam, correct me if I'm wrong, was just to basically for those one-off instances where people have done that and it's causing light pollution and somebody has complained, they have a way to enforce it.
Exactly. A lot of the things that you will see, the design guidelines actually just establish what level of review something requires, not that it's prohibited.
Yeah.
That's why it says may. It gives you that door just
It
in
says
case.
may not. May not feels a lot more permanent.
And then
I appreciate you all.
I'm fine with getting rid of the cozy and inviting atmosphere. I think just simply saying use soft to warm white tones, color temperatures no higher than 3000 Kelvin, period.
Yeah.
I think we
Cozy
can.
is hard to define.
Yeah, just anything over 3000 Kelvin, it's a measurable color, temperature, and just keep it at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Anything?
actually, before we move on that, you know how we say like landscape lights, we say landscape lighting should be integrated in the natural environment, where those are our more like soft and wooey terms. Could we move the cozy and inviting atmosphere and inviting and avoiding harsh, cool lighting up into the like kind of overall subject header where we are saying like what our design intent is rather than what, the pragmatic ways that we get there are?
You want that in the objective/goal?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would, I don't know what anyone else's opinions are, but that is an objective or goal of us doing these string lightings. We want to create a soft, cozy, and inviting atmosphere that we can then determine has been achieved by making sure that the lights are no more than 3000 Kelvin.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all.
It seems like it might belong in the comments more so than the objective, though. The comments at the end where it's kind of like general
More vibe
guidelines.
based.
Yeah, because I don't know if it's really an objective to create a warm, cozy environment. I think that could just be, I don't know, it feels like it might work in comments better, in my opinion.
No, great, but I think it's a nice note that if we get a new member to just be like, hey, what's the goal here?
Apparently not to have cascading icicle lights running 24 hours a day for 12 months of the year. Right, Elena?
Well, my husband mentioned it because we can see him through our bedroom window, and he was complaining to me. I said, oh, call covenants. I don't care. You're talking to someone who just doesn't care. So call somebody else and complain about it.
Well, tell them it ain't me.
You guys have to come by my house on Halloween. I go full tilts. And I'm that obnoxious person that has Halloween lights up for like a month and a half. So,
Temporary. They're not permanent.
Temporary.
See?
Purple flashing lights.
I wanted to hit a record and be done by 9. So let's
Okay,
keep
go.
rolling. I think we have enough comments that we can update that, right, staff, and tweak it and present it.
Yes.
All right, let's move on.
Okay, so next is the accessible facilities. On page 68, comment number 7 raises uncertainty about the need to obtain neighbor acknowledgement, especially concerning endorsing an accommodation allowing a member to build a wheelchair ramp for home access.
Is Tony still on? Does he want to weigh in?
So I could be really particular, but ADA is the act. It's the ADA standards that are the requirements. DOJ passed ADA standards in 2010, and that's the law, or it has to comply with code. But ADA is an act, and it doesn't have any compliance requirements in it in terms of dimensions, physical, whatever.
To me, though, you can still make a ramp look nice. It can still be integrated into the environment, or it can be screened nicely or whatever. Whether a neighbor has to sign off on it or not, I don't know. Tony, do you think, are we defining some sort of violation?
Yeah, no, I don't think a neighbor has to sign off on it for
a specific accessible facility for this person's house. I think it still needs to go before the board to make sure that it's designed according to our guidelines.
But wouldn't a neighbor want to be a neighbor couldn't be an affected party saying, I don't want a ramp there, but a neighbor could be an affected party who would want to be alerted to the installation and be able to talk about how the installation might affect them.
Could we just go with a neighborhood notification that has to be submitted via certified mail? That is very typical for.
Yeah, I mean, what's tricky is people think that a neighbor, like the neighbor signing the signature is just an acknowledgement of the application. It's not actually an approval or disapproval. So to me, it's not affecting an ADA guideline. We're not saying you can't do it. They just want to be involved in the decision because it affects their property value because of its, you can see it. So to me, I'm fine with keeping it in there, but
I'm fine. I think it should be in there. I think neighbors would want to know. And
so just so everyone is aware, the reason why we added that particular paragraph was because that it was missing. And if you look down below, an application of obtaining your neighbor signature for a staff in consultation with DRB or a panel by the DRB, still has that signature requirement. And this is really a signature requirement of the deed. When you submit an application, that is a requirement of the deed. So I guess the Bach member's question was more so from a legal aspect. Does the signature requirement prevent them or delay them from being able to submit for their accommodation? But there really was no change other than we're actually expediting it by having a staff review level instead of a consultation level.
Right.
I think a neighborhood notification is unduly burdensome. We don't do neighborhood notifications for most projects, as far as I'm aware.
No. Yeah, no, neighborhood notification is unduly burdensome. Obtaining applications, signatures on your application, I don't believe is.
Just from personal experience, I would argue the difference, because like making sure your neighbors are home and actually getting their signature is a lot harder than just mailing them a thing and being like, look, I mailed you a thing. But
yeah, but if
I also went to the post office on 4/15 and made mistakes yesterday. So
yeah, so but certified mail is expensive. What is the definition of the neighborhood? How many, I mean, for my cluster, for instance, we don't mail anything anymore because it costs us so much money to mail. And we don't do anything certified. It's part of our bylaws. Email is delivery. So.
And that was, I honestly, that was just a question.
Yeah,
I don't
I
have
know. I'm
skin
not
in this
trying
game.
to, but I'm just trying to, I think neighborhood notification it gets burdensome, but neighboring signatures, they don't absolutely have to be your next door neighbor if they're not available. And that's standard with all applications. So I don't think it's unduly burdensome.
That's my thought. So I think we just leave it as is and just, I think what staff has is fine, in my opinion.
Great, moving on to the next one.
On page 81, a comment for the general overview. The comment suggests including language that clearly states that affected parties may voice their concerns, but they are not participants in the decision-making. That was comment number 8. I believe, that information is included in our resolution, so. But that was a comment that was made.
Yeah,
I think
this is just restating what's already inherent to the business, right?
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Comment number 10, concerning condominiums. It's not listed. It was just feedback to reach out to the condo officers to obtain feedback, which we've done, and we've received feedback from multiple condominium associations. And then the last comment, 11, recommends creating a flow chart to visually depict popular exterior modifications, aiming to enhance the efficiency of guiding members through the DRB process application. And staff's comment or clarification is this comment was more so to address members' experience from navigating through the RA website, not for inclusion of the design guidelines. Just needed to put that out there, though.
Agree.
And that's it.
Like the idea, don't think it needs to be in the guidelines.
And those are all of the comments that we received from Bach. And so the next step, staff will incorporate everything that was discussed tonight. I've noted everything. Create the finalized version of the DRB, the design guidelines, and then sign it up for a public hearing.
So we don't need to make a motion or anything on this, right?
No.
The only thing, and I swear, Michael, I will get you out of here by 9 o'clock, is that Cam and I had a phone call and he mentioned that I should bring up now, because we talked about it in the past. And while we have everybody here, I would just like to lob back up the idea of having a committee, a subcommittee of some kind to address the tear down, rebuilds, and zoning, lot coverage, stormwater management criteria for development in Reston going forward, because we're doing great work and getting into the minutia of these design guideline standards, but I feel like we are going to be shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't get ahead of the fact that we've approved at least one tear down rebuild in Reston, and there will be much more to come because it's cheaper to knock it down and rebuild it. So I would love help. I am happy to spearhead. I'm happy to help in any way. But if we go with the Fairfax County standards and we just approve what they have submitted, we will not be looking at a recognizable Reston in 15 years. So.
And what is your recommendation to build a new tear down infill guideline? Is that?
I'd like to make a guideline about for tear down, rebuild, large additions. Because if you're expanding the footprint of your house by more than, I don't know, I'm going to throw a number out there and say 25%, you're affecting your lot coverage, you're affecting your stormwater management, you're affecting your neighbors. And there's so much that Fairfax County will let you get away with, and that we can't, like, if we don't go over and above them, there will be no more mature trees on lots because it'll be too.
So I understand the concern. My concern is, and is Tony still on?
Yes.
Because, so if county zoning allows something, and that's something that I, as a homeowner of a single family home, have that value in my lot, and then Reston Association comes along and restricts my ability to build out to whatever the county will allow, is that an unlawful taking?
No.
Okay.
One, we can't do a taking because we are not a governmental entity. Two, in many instances, our covenants are more restrictive than that which the county puts out there.
Okay. It's just a, a value in property that's being restricted by Reston that someone had, and it's changing.
I mean, you could make the argument that me putting a marijuana dispensary in my backyard is a property value that I have under the statute. Doesn't mean we're going to allow it in Reston.
Okay. Just want to be sure, because I can just see there's going to be, somebody's going to lawyer up.
Well, and I don't think Emily's trying to
Oh,
stop.
I'm not, I
doing that.
understand.
I think we're just trying to clarify. We're trying to create a better guideline because it's going to be coming forward. I think our guideline right now, if you pull up our tear down infill guideline, has about 3 sentences in it because it's I know like when we've reviewed new, even just a couple new builds on lots that, there are, I think now there's probably not few remaining empty lots in Reston, but I have seen a couple brand new houses on my time here. Even our guidelines for that is very, very slim, and it's really open to interpretation of kind of what you can really do. And in Reston, our setbacks are just 16. Like I know where I'm at when I did my house, which I did something very similar, Emily, that you're saying, from an addition rebuild kind of thing. I found out that you can build 0 lot line in Reston if you actually want to, in single family detached, and you can go, as long as you're 16 feet from your neighbor. That and it's basically the race to whoever can build first, to expand on your own property, right?
Yeah.
So there are different ways that I think we could work through that and look at where zoning may allow 16-foot setback, but between your neighbor. But then that means you could go 0 lot line. Maybe we do require, you have to keep at least, 5 feet from the lot line. I think we could keep, there was certain people will take advantage of the rules. I tried to be cognizant of the neighbors, but not everybody is going to be like that kind of when they're designing something. So Emily, I'd be happy to, help on that committee from that standpoint, just because I do have firsthand even experience dealing with it. I have actually a bunch of clients kind of lined up who are looking to do stuff, and it's very similar. It's not quite full. I think 25% might be a little stringent, but
yeah,
I would maybe lean closer to if you're over 50%, but from an addition standpoint. But
honestly, I think we could do a lot by stealing what Arlington County has as their rules, and applying them to Reston will do a lot to like us not having to reinvent the wheel. And we can just be like, hey, these calculations, ta-da, like we're gonna run by them too. But I think there's a conversation to be had, and that's something that I just want to keep bringing up until we get to a resolution, because leaving things the way that they are is not going to be keeping Reston the beautiful, wonderful place that we like to live in it. It's like you said, people will take advantage, and we will have complete lot wipe downs because that's what they can do.
Yeah, because I don't even think Reston zoning, I don't think we have FAR.
You don't
coverage or anything. You could just go, 20 feet lot setback, and It's 0 foot side setback as long as you're 16 feet. Yeah, okay. All right, I'd be happy to join. If anyone else wants to join, let us know. Anybody feeling like they're interested? I don't know what that exactly entails. I think it's Emily, buying us drinks out somewhere and writing guidelines together. But
Yes.
anybody else want to join? You don't have to make a decision right now. Just
I'm in, but absolutely.
You said drinks and Mike was in. I like it.
Yeah, I'm in. Let's go.
But yeah, I do think it's important. So if you don't want to pipe up now, it's fine. Just let staff know. Staff, can you help facilitate like how I think we've always said we'll do subcommittees, but I don't actually know what that entails. And do we have meetings? Do we just, email back and forth? I think as long as we're 3 members or less, it's okay. Correct, Tony?
Technically 4.
4. Okay, we can have up to 4. So really there's only 1 spot left, so it's a coveted last spot. So but
Yeah,
can
definitely.
staff help facilitate that, or do we just kind of do it on our own, or how does that work?
No, I mean, I can do whatever you need. If you need me to reserve space for you or set up a Zoom meeting, however you would like to meet.
Okay.
Just let
Cool.
me know.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right. I will second that.
Let's hold the vote at 9:01.
All those in favor, beating it by 4 minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Bye.
Motion passes 7-0 or 7-0-1 because I think John left. So just for the record. All right. Thank you. And staff,
Thank you.
we have 1 open spot, right? Or am I wrong about that?
1 open spot for.